This is just to show how much I love y'all doing these oil tests. All right, so they're out. There's no spares up top. Come on, focus you. So you can do 16 ounces for 10 bucks, or you can do 2.6, my phone focus today, 2.6 ounces for 5 bucks. I'm gonna mix up 2 gallons and I'll have a little bit left over. Who in their right mind would buy that, even at 20% off? That's crazy talk. Well, this old tired thing right here was my firewood saw, and this is what I did all my oil tests with. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put some repair work on hold. Most of that's done. Just wait for people to pick up. And take a few minutes and put our test dummy back to work. I've got a used cylinder. And for those of you that remember, I had an issue with the plating around the intake port starting to wear off. I think this is it. You know, this didn't have anything to do with oil. This just, you know, this cylinder had been cleaned up a couple of times. And once that plating started coming off, it got into the bearings and she got a little hot. But anyway, I've had everything in a box to put this back together with. I got some new parts and gaskets and seals and pistons. So let me throw this thing back together. We're gonna test some oil. Just a quick note about this 046. The first couple of years they made these, they were truly like a pre-EPA carb. So this 1309 coil for an 1128. 1128 is a prefix for 440s, 460s. The better ignition curve on this, and this is an HD, let's see if that'll focus, HD9. So this has the larger Venturi and larger jet in it before they started to crimp down. This saw would have also come with a factory dual port cover. One hitch we're gonna have to work around. Whoops, this is the old cylinder. That's how hot this thing got, with good gas and good oil in it, with those fines of the plating that came off. I've got a donor that I picked up off of eBay, and you'll see that some rocket scientist used a screwdriver or something. So I'm gonna raise the exhaust port on this, so that'll be the only port work done to this unit. It'll still be serviceable and, you know, might actually breathe a little bit better. I won't have to raise the exhaust too terribly bad. And then lastly, on my, you know, because this is just a beater saw. This is my personal saw. This isn't going to get sold. This crank has some wear on this journal. So here's a brand hammer new bearing, and it should slide onto right there. And then from here, it's a press fit, but it's not. Now and here's where this magic stuff comes in. Loctite 620. Look it up and see what its holding power is. It's a sleeve sealer. It's good to use in a bearing pocket. I think it will take up to like 2/1000ths of play. And right now, this is just a slip fit on this brand new bearing. So just a thin coating of this 620 on that crankshaft, and that bearing is going. All right, just for a baseline, this is the piston that came out of the old cylinder, and you'll still see a few imperfections right there, a couple of little scratches from where that plating was come off. I took some, whoops, can't even see what I'm using here. This is Scotch-Brite. It's the ultra fine. So I didn't really remove anything. I just kind of polished out any of those imperfections that were in there. That's the intake side, and here's the exhaust side. Same thing. I mean, you know, it's a few imperfections, and then I'll polish out the top, and that way we'll be able to see either a wash pattern or how much carbon buildup we end up with. I did have to raise the exhaust port a little bit more than I was planning, because where that nick was, the cylinder was actually bulged out right there. So if you look in here, it looks like a hack job. Oh, that's not too bad. Let's smooth it out. But there's definitely that one raised area, and that was just to get that dimple out of the cylinder wall. So enough about that. All right, we're out here at the wood lot. Got my 40 to 1, a real 40 to 1, actually measured, non-ethanol fuel, 89 octane. I'm gonna run a tank of gas through this. I do need to get it tuned because I have not even pulled the cord yet. But I'll show you a few cuts with it and see how she runs. Okay, seems to run pretty dang good, even with that real high exhaust. Let me show you a few test cuts, and then I'm just gonna stand around and cut and cut and cut until this tank of gas is gone. But yeah, less grammar, more hammer. Takes a while. Look at all that sawdust to start burning a tank of gas. I'm almost out. I did want to show you. This thing is still nice and sharp. I haven't hit anything, but that right there is our hickory. You look how tough this stuff is. Okay, it's the next day, back at the shop, and as usual, if you've ever seen any of my breakdowns, this is my workhorse that does all the fuel and oil testing. And yes, one day I will get to the Aspen Alkalite fuel. I've done some pre-assembly. We will look at this together at the same time. Here, let me take this off. Oh, lordy. So there is a follow-up video to what's inside. That looks good. So this is our 40 to 1. Here, let me go ahead and pull the muffler. VP, 40 to 1 VP. And this is one that I didn't do when I was doing regular oil tests. But saw ran good and no complaints. Let me take that pressure off of that. Pull the carb. Stuff her around the boot. And I didn't lock these down yesterday. Drum roll. Okay. Gaskets off. Now, I have to preface this. I haven't looked in here. I have seen brand hammer new saws that people have brought to me that have not been fueled yet. And because all the pro saws are run at the factory, sometimes there is a little bit of, we'll call it self-clearancing. So it's not unusual to see a little bit of fine aluminum powder here and there on that first break-in run. But let's have a look and see. What I can say is that the top of the piston doesn't have a lick of carbon on it. So that is your FD rating working hard for you. You can just barely see the wash pattern from the upper transfers on there. I mean, I got to kind of hit it at just the right amount of light to get it there. Let's see how the front of the piston fared. Looks like it did really well. And, you know, again, remember that I had to raise this exhaust port because there was a divot in there where somebody used a screwdriver for a piston stop. Jackass. But I knew that when I bought it. So, I mean, no harm, no foul. I figured I could salvage this, and it still runs fine. No other port work was done. I should have cleaned up the combustion chamber a little bit better. But everything's nice and shiny. There's a good film. I mean, and I've always said that 50 to 1, you know, you got great upper cylinder lubricant, and that at 40 to 1, you have better bottom end lubrication. Let's see what we got here. Yep, got a little oil film on the piston, just like expected. And let me move this forward. And that way we can get a look in the crankcase itself. Take you in nice and close. Yeah, a little bit right there in the corners. Yeah. And let's see if any has settled. Let me get a flashlight. And we'll get down here. Very little bit. But I'd have to give this an A+ at 40 to 1. Some of the tints seem to show up better than others. But I'm telling you, that's about as clean as I've seen an oil burn in all these tests we've done. You know, you can see you got a little bit of pink oil right there. Yeah, there's a little bit down there in the bottom too. All right. So again, here, let me set you down. I do like using this particular saw to do these breakdowns, so that way we don't get into too terribly long taking everything apart and putting everything back together for the next thing that we test. You know, these are really nice, simplistic design saws, the 44s and the 46s. So getting them pulled apart, enough said about that. I don't think it would have looked this good at 50 to 1. It's just me. I think you end up with your oil too far diluted to really cling to everything. You know, when you can get an oil at 50 to 1 to leave this kind of film in the crankcase and on the internals, you got an exceptionally good oil. But, you know, for the extra, you know, tablespoon of oil it takes to go from 50 to 1 down to 40 to 1, you know, it's a no-brainer. You know, you consistently see this kind of results at 40 to 1. It would, you know, just average oil. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. Tell me what you think down in the comments.